Good morning, everyone. So, we are the Group 6 reporters in NSTP2. This presentation is for our fulfillment of our requirements in NSTP2. Before we dive to our exciting and detailed topic, let us witness what are the missions and the visions of the ICpEP.SE. The mission of the Institute of Computer Engineers of the Philippines Student Edition or ICpEP.SE is committed in bridging the gap between the industry and the academe by empowering the interests, welfare, and ideals of its member, developing a strong harmonious foundation within its community and professionalizing the skills of its officers and members for global competitiveness and national progression. While on the vision, the Institute of Computer Engineers of the Philippines Student Edition envisions itself as the foundation of world-class computer engineers and motivators of students' interest towards excellence in computer engineering as their field of specialization.
We also have the visions and visions of our Polytechnic Cagayan State University. The vision, SESU is a university with global stature in the arts, culture, agriculture, and fisheries, the sciences, as well as technological and professional fields. While on mission, Cagayan State University shall produce globally competent graduates through excellent instruction, innovative and creative research, responsive public service, and productive industry and community engagement. The title of our topic is all about DRRM frameworks and practices. The objectives for this topic is 1. The listeners will be able to know what are the safety precautions when calamity comes. Number 2, self-defense, self-awareness, alertness, initiative, critically thinkers, and decision skills will enhance. And number 3, the set of priorities, fundamental elements, and all components of DRRM are discussed by the reporters.
DRRM or Disaster Risk Reduction Management. DRRM is an organized approach in identifying, assessing, and preventing the further damage of a disaster in relationship to environmental and man-made hazards that trigger them. The disaster risk reduction management is one way to protect and lessen the harm when disaster and emergencies occurs to a certain place. And andito nakapaloob ang mga safety tips, mga hakbang para maiwasan ang sobra-sobrang pinsala ng anumang kalamidad.
We will also define the word disaster risk. Disaster risk, potential loss of life, injury, and destroy assets, means that it has a possibility that can cause harm to infrastructure, buildings, and even worse, can kill people. When we say harm, is pinsalang dulot ng kalamidad.
Now, we move on to the Republic Act 10121, a Philippine DRRM Act of 2010, wherein this Philippine DRRM responds to Sendai framework of DRR. Now, what is the background of Philippine DRRM Act of 2010? It has a lot of achievements way back 2010, wherein we are just governed by the executive order. It states there that from disaster relief and response approach to risk reduction and management, wherein every calamity, the response of the government is to give relief operations by giving relief goods. Next, we have establishment of an organizational structure through national and local DRRM councils, wherein as of now there are a lot of sectors of government. We have DepEd, DOH, and many more that comprise of DRRM councils. Last but not the least, multi-hazard, multi-sectoral, interagency, and community-based approach.
Now, let us now move on to the frameworks of DRRM. So now, we look at the risk factors. We have the hazards, exposures, vulnerabilities, and capacities that will determine our risk of disaster to have a safer, adaptive, and resilient Filipino towards sustainable development. We have the cycle, prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. That every year we experience 20 typhoons and the other disaster will replicate. So we need to mainstream DRR and CCA in planning and implementation.
So from now, we will tackle the four priorities of the RRM. We have mitigation. Mitigation means effort to minimize potential impact of disaster. For instances, we have building codes. And the best example is evacuation plan. Then we have zoning, public campaign, and many more. Preparedness. Ito yung paghahanda. How to respond when disaster strikes. We have training and exercises. Like for example, there is an earthquake drill implemented in our school every year. Next is contingency planning, warning, and alert system. Next, we have response. Response is the activities carried out in the immediate aftermath of disaster to minimize the effect of disaster. For examples, we do search and rescue operations, rapid assessment, and logic distribution.
Last but not the least, we have the recovery or yung muling pagbangon. Recovery, bringing the community back to normal situation pre-disaster. Recovery means bringing the community back to normal situation pre-disaster. When we say pre, it means before the disaster. A national framework for DRRM, which shows the overall direction, set of priorities, and which delineates the fundamental elements and components of disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management in the country is necessary to guide national and local efforts in DRM.
To sum up, the importance of having DRR is to have a safer, adaptive, disaster resilient towards sustainable development.
We move on to the hazard exposure vulnerability framework for disaster risk reduction. Let's use as an example the typhoon.
What will happen if the typhoon landfall to a certain place? Here we have the hazards, exposure, and the vulnerabilities. Hazard means can cause harm or nagdudulot ng pinsala. During typhoon, we can experience thunderstorms or yung pagkulog. We have also violent winds, flash floods, landslides, and huge wave due to high storm surge sa dagat.
Second, we have the exposure. Exposure means these were affected by the hazard or yung mga naapektuhan ng mga pinsala. We have people living downstreams in nearby bodies of water. We also have crops or farmlands and infrastructures. Last but not the least, we have vulnerability. Vulnerability means greater chance of being hit or attacked by the disaster. So, sino mga mas naapektuhan? Siyempre, the people who live down the stream are more vulnerable to floods than people who live higher up.
After knowing the DRRM frameworks, DRR, and the four priorities of the DRR, let us proceed now to the last segment of our topic, which is the DRRM practices. So the first we need to consider when there is a disaster, we need to have our survival needs. We have the air, water, sleep, safety, food, clothing, and shelter.
Second is what to pack in the survival kit. On health and sanitation, we need to have toothbrush and toothpaste, shampoo, soap, wet wipes, vitamins, medicines, antibiotics, and insect repellent. Also, on food kit, we need to have water, white flood or coffee filter, easy to open goods, bleach or iodine, high energy packaged food, coffee, milk for children, and pet food. Next, we have during an earthquake. Step 1. When the shaking starts, keep calm and do not panic. Next step, drop down on the ground and seek cover under a sturdy table or desk. Step 3. Keep away from glass furniture or windows that may break. Step 4. Keep away from tall furnitures that may fall or ceiling fixtures that may become loose. And the last step, hold onto something until the shaking has stopped.
Fourth, we need also to practice and know the public storms. As we can see in the table, the impact of signal number 1 is no damage to very light damage. In signal number 2, light to moderate damage. In signal number 3, moderate to heavy damage. In signal number 4, heavy to very heavy damage. In signal number 5, very heavy to widespread damage.
And we also have the most relevant, which is the flood. Before, inform, organize, and plan. During, assess, move, and follow. And after, avoid, watch, and wait.
We also have practices when landslide occurs. First, avoid river valleys and other low areas. Second, listen to a local news station for updates. Third, evacuate if it is safe to do so. Fourth, move out of the path of the landslide as quickly as you can. And last, turn into a ball if you cannot skip.
We will also not forget the volcanic alert level. Alert level 0, it is quiet or no alert. Alert level 1, there is a low level of volcanic unrest. Alert level 3, there is magmatic unrest. Alert level 4, there is a hazardous eruption imminent. And alert level 5, there is a hazardous eruption in progress.
Last but not the least, the best particles is to have the emergency hotline numbers of the NDRRMC.
I think that is the end of our discussion for today. I hope you learned something from us. And stay safe, everyone, and thank you for lending your ears to our presentation. Once again, we are the Group 6 reporters. Thank you.